You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Tokenization is a technique designed to protect sensitive information by replacing the original value with a substitute that carries no intrinsic meaning. Instead of storing a credit card number or a social security number in its raw form, organizations generate a token, a string of characters that looks similar to the original but holds no exploitable value. The mapping between token and original value is stored securely, ensuring that only authorized systems can recover the real data. This approach preserves usability because tokens can be passed through business systems without exposing sensitive details. It is similar to using poker chips in a casino. The chips function for transactions inside the casino, but outside, they have no value unless exchanged through a controlled counter. Tokenization achieves the same effect for sensitive data, balancing protection with operational continuity. Vault-based tokenization is the most traditional form, relying on a secure repository to maintain the mapping between original values and their tokens. This token vault is heavily hardened with strict access controls, strong encryption, and rigorous audit logging. The security of the vault is paramount because if it is compromised, the mappings could reveal sensitive data. Organizations must therefore invest in redundancy, monitoring, and regular audits to ensure its resilience. Vault-based tokenization provides flexibility and is often easier to integrate because it allows any arbitrary value to be tokenized, but the reliance on a centralized store introduces performance and scalability challenges. Picture a guarded archive where every original document is cross-referenced to its codename. The archive is invaluable, but it must be protected at all costs. Vaultless tokenization addresses some of the performance and scalability challenges by removing the need for a centralized mapping repository. Instead, it uses cryptographic algorithms to generate consistent tokens deterministically. Given the same input and key, the system will always produce the same token, allowing for referential consistency without persisting mappings. This reduces the single point of failure that a vault represents, but it shifts responsibility to strong key management and algorithm design. Vaultless tokenization shines in high-volume, distributed environments where latency and throughput matter, but organizations must be careful to ensure that cryptographic methods are vetted and resistant to attack. The analogy here is generating codenames algorithmically from a formula, rather than relying on a central ledger more efficient, but reliant on the secrecy and strength of the formula itself. Data masking takes a different approach by transforming sensitive values into obfuscated representations. Unlike tokenization, which typically allows reversibility under controlled conditions, masking often intends to limit use cases to contexts where real data is not necessary. For example, replacing the digits of a credit card with asterisks, or showing only the last 4 numbers, lets customer service verify identity without exposing the entire card. Masking supports testing, training, and analytics by providing realistic-looking data while stripping away sensitive content. Its purpose is not to enable recovery of the original value, but to preserve enough utility for secondary uses. It is like using blurred images in a public presentation. The shapes and structure remain recognizable, but sensitive details are hidden from view. Dynamic data masking extends this idea by applying obfuscation in real time, based on the context of the request. Instead of permanently altering stored data, policies decide at query time how much of the value to reveal depending on the user's role or conditions. An administrator might see full account numbers, while a customer support representative sees only partially masked values. This approach provides flexibility and ensures that the same dataset can serve multiple audiences safely. It also reduces the risk of storing masked data incorrectly, since the original values remain intact but hidden by policy. Dynamic masking acts like window blinds. Depending on who is outside and what time it is, the blinds adjust to reveal more or less of what lies within, keeping exposure proportional to need. Redaction, in contrast, is often irreversible. Sensitive fields or portions of data are removed entirely, leaving no way to recover the original value. For example, documents released under public records requests may black out names or addresses to protect privacy. In data systems, redaction might permanently truncate identifiers or delete fields altogether. This approach ensures zero exposure, but also eliminates future utility, making it suitable only when ongoing use of the data is unnecessary or inappropriate. It is akin to cutting a piece of sensitive information out of a paper document, with scissors effective at preventing disclosure but destructive to the original. Redaction is therefore a blunt but powerful instrument in the toolkit of data protection. Format-preserving encryption, or FPE, strikes a balance by encrypting data while retaining its original structure, length, and allowed character set. This is particularly useful in systems that expect inputs to follow strict patterns, such as credit card fields that must remain 16 digits long. With FPE, the encrypted value looks syntactically valid while concealing the underlying plaintext. This compatibility reduces integration challenges in legacy systems and supports analytics that require consistent formatting. However, FPE relies on strong cryptographic foundations and proper key management to prevent weaknesses. It is much like disguising a person by giving them new clothing and hairstyle that preserve their height and build. On the surface they appear the same, but their identity is concealed beneath. Pseudonymization replaces identifiers with surrogate values that can later be relinked under controlled conditions. Unlike anonymization, which aims to permanently sever connections, pseudonymization preserves the ability to restore or reconcile data when necessary. This is common in healthcare research, where patient records may be pseudonymized for analysis, but re-identifiable if needed for follow-up treatment. The power of pseudonymization lies in its flexibility. It lowers risk in routine use while preserving utility for specific, authorized scenarios. Think of it as substituting code names for agents in a report. The names protect confidentiality, but a key exists that allows supervisors to match aliases back to real identities when justified. Anonymization goes a step further by removing or altering identifiers so thoroughly that individuals cannot be re-identified with reasonable effort. True anonymization is notoriously difficult because auxiliary datasets can often re-establish links if enough detail remains. Effective anonymization requires both careful transformation and thoughtful risk analysis about what other data might be available. For instance, stripping names from a dataset may not suffice if birth dates and postal codes remain, as these combinations can still uniquely identify people. Anonymization is like blending a face into a crowd. The goal is to make any single individual indistinguishable from many others, thereby reducing the risk of personal exposure in analytic or shared contexts. Deterministic encryption produces the same ciphertext for the same plaintext and key every time. This property is valuable when systems need to perform equality comparisons, such as database joins or searches, without revealing plaintext. For example, encrypting an email address deterministically allows two systems to confirm whether records match without knowing the underlying value. However, deterministic schemes also risk leakage if attackers can guess likely inputs and confirm them through matching ciphertext. The method is useful but must be applied carefully, usually for non-high entropy fields where referential integrity is essential. Deterministic encryption acts like a consistent alias. The name changes but stays the same every time, enabling coordination without revealing the original. Referential integrity becomes a critical requirement when organizations need consistent substitutes across multiple systems. If one database replaces a social security number with one surrogate while another uses a different surrogate, linking the records becomes impossible. Tokenization, pseudonymization, and deterministic encryption each address this need differently, providing consistency across contexts. Choosing the right scheme depends on whether reversibility, collision resistance, or analytical utility is required. Referential integrity ensures that the protected data retains its meaning and relationships even when concealed. Without it, systems risk fragmentation, where security controls prevent not only attackers but also the business itself from making sense of the information. Collision resistance is another key property, ensuring that two different source values do not map to the same token within a namespace. Collisions create confusion, undermine integrity, and may allow attackers to manipulate results. Cryptographic methods provide strong resistance by using vast key spaces and randomness, but poorly designed tokenization or pseudonymization schemes may fall short. Imagine if two patients' records were given the same pseudonym. The results would be disastrous for care and trust. Strong design avoids such risks, ensuring that every original value maps to a unique protected surrogate. In this way, collision resistance preserves both security and accuracy, reinforcing the reliability of protected systems. Reversibility characteristics distinguish the various field-level protection methods and directly impact compliance outcomes. Tokenization and FPE are reversible under strict control, making them suitable when recovery of the original is necessary. Masking, redaction, and anonymization are irreversible, meaning once transformed, the original cannot be restored. Pseudonymization sits between the two, permitting relinking under defined authority. Choosing the right approach depends on balancing business utility with risk. Sometimes you must be able to restore values, and other times security demands permanent concealment. It is like deciding whether to lock an item in a safe, shred it, or replace it with a stand-in, depending on its importance and context. Understanding reversibility is fundamental to matching technique with purpose. Threat models provide the context for evaluating tokenization and masking strategies. A vault-based system must anticipate vault compromise and defend, with strong encryption, monitoring, and dual control access. Vaultless systems must consider cryptographic key exposure or weaknesses in algorithms. All approaches must account for inference attacks, where attackers correlate tokenized datasets with auxiliary information to re-identify individuals. For example, if an attacker knows the distribution of birth dates in a population, they may match masked or tokenized values to real individuals with surprising accuracy. Effective protection requires anticipating not just direct theft, but also indirect inference, making threat modeling an indispensable step in design. Performance is the final consideration that can determine whether tokenization or masking succeeds in practice. High-volume systems demand low latency, and tokenization can introduce overhead if mappings or algorithms are not optimized. Vault-based approaches may struggle under heavy load, while vaultless methods reduce bottlenecks but place more weight on cryptographic computation. Safe caching strategies may improve speed, but they must never compromise security by exposing plain text or tokens in insecure environments. Balancing throughput, latency, and assurance is like designing a toll system. You want cars to move quickly, but never at the expense of accurate payment and monitoring. Performance considerations ensure that protection techniques enhance security without crippling the systems they aim to safeguard. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Policy scoping defines the boundaries of where tokenization, masking, or encryption should apply, ensuring that protection is targeted and effective. Not every field requires transformation, and indiscriminate masking can reduce business value. For example, encrypting or tokenizing transaction IDs used for analytics may break reporting workflows unnecessarily. Instead, organizations define policies that map specific datasets, flows, and fields to appropriate protection methods. Personally identifiable information such as social security numbers or payment card numbers typically fall under strict tokenization, while less sensitive but still regulated fields may be masked. Policy scoping is like triage in medicine. You prioritize the most critical patients for immediate intervention while ensuring resources are allocated wisely. By establishing clear scoping rules, organizations prevent both underprotection, which invites risk, and overprotection, which hampers utility. The effectiveness of vaultless tokenization and format-preserving encryption rests heavily on strong key management and custody. Keys must be generated with robust randomness, stored in secure modules, rotated on predictable schedules, and tightly restricted to least privilege access. Poor key management undermines even the strongest algorithms, turning protection into illusion. Organizations often rely on hardware security modules, HSMs, or key management services, KMS, to anchor these practices. The stakes are high. If keys are lost, encrypted data becomes inaccessible. If keys are stolen, data may be exposed. Custody procedures must balance resilience with security, ensuring backup keys exist without introducing shadow copies. Effective key governance makes cryptographic protections reliable in practice, transforming abstract math into trustworthy safeguards. Access control in tokenization systems must extend beyond general data permissions to include mapping lookup privileges. This means that only select, highly trusted identities can retrieve original values from tokens or surrogates, while broader audiences interact solely with the protected substitutes. Separating mapping access from general use enforces least privilege at a structural level. Imagine a currency exchange. Many people can use tokens to conduct business, but only bank tellers with special authority can redeem tokens back into cash. By embedding strict controls on who can reverse transformations, organizations minimize insider risk and confine sensitive capabilities to narrow, auditable channels, reducing opportunities for misuse or compromise. Data lineage records every transformation a dataset undergoes, ensuring downstream systems understand the semantics of tokenized or masked fields. Without lineage, confusion can arise. Is this field a token, a masked value, or plain text? Proper lineage tracking documents the applied transformations and preserves relationships between fields, making data meaningful in context. This is particularly vital in complex data ecosystems with pipelines, warehouses, and machine learning models. Data lineage functions like a chain of custody in law enforcement. It ensures that evidence, or in this case data, can be trusted because every step in its journey is known and verifiable. With lineage, organizations can confidently use protected data without misinterpretation or misapplication. Testing is essential to validate that tokenization and masking rules function securely and as intended. Poorly designed masking might leak structure, while improperly formatted tokens could disrupt applications. For example, a masking routine that always substitutes digits with the same character may inadvertently signal the number of digits, leaving patterns exposed. Testing must include functional validation to ensure applications handle transformed data gracefully, and security validation to confirm no sensitive information bleeds through. In effect, testing ensures that protective measures do not become security theater. Just as engineers stress test bridges before opening them to the public, data protection systems must be scrutinized under realistic loads and edge cases to confirm they truly hold under pressure. Analytics enablement remains a central consideration in choosing field-level protection strategies. Businesses depend on their ability to group, filter, and join data, even when sensitive fields are concealed. Tokenization and deterministic encryption enable consistent substitutes that preserve relationships without exposing raw identifiers. Masking may suffice for aggregate reporting but fall short for relational queries. Selecting the right method ensures that security does not cripple insight. A hospital, for example, may pseudonymize patient identifiers to allow longitudinal studies without revealing identities. Analytics enablement is about striking harmony, safeguarding data while still enabling meaningful discovery. This careful balance ensures that security investments strengthen, rather than hinder, organizational intelligence and value creation. Secrets handling is often overlooked but vital. Tokens, surrogates, or pseudonyms may themselves be treated as sensitive, since leakage into logs, caches, or URLs could create backdoors for inference. For instance, a token appearing in a browser address bar might be inadvertently shared in referral headers, exposing unintended traces. Organizations must classify tokens as sensitive artifacts, subjecting them to secure handling practices like encryption in transit, restricted logging, and careful cache management. Treating surrogates as first-class secrets ensures consistency. If something stands in for sensitive data, it must be guarded with equal vigilance. Ignoring this reality undermines the very purpose of tokenization and masking, leaving trails for attackers to follow. Error handling in tokenization systems must fail closed, never exposing plaintext if transformation routines falter. A service encountering an unexpected fault should return an error message or substitute placeholder, not revert to returning the original sensitive value. This principle ensures that protection does not unravel under stress. Alerts should be generated for administrators when errors occur, creating opportunities for remediation without sacrificing security. The analogy is straightforward. If a vault's door malfunctions, it should stay locked rather than swinging open. Insecure error handling is a subtle but devastating weakness, making failure scenarios a key focus of resilient system design. Integration patterns determine where tokenization is applied in the data flow. Placing tokenization at ingestion gateways, message buses, or application boundaries ensures that sensitive values are transformed before propagating deeper into systems. This frontline defense reduces the footprint of raw sensitive data, confining it to narrow, controlled zones. Once tokenized, data can safely move through analytics pipelines, APIs, and applications without repeated exposure. Strategic placement of tokenization mirrors airport security checkpoints. Thorough screening at the entry point reduces the need for heavy controls in every subsequent space. By integrating protection early, organizations minimize risk and maximize confidence in downstream processing. Consistency across systems is critical when multiple applications must interact with tokenized data. If different services generate their own tokens independently, the same value may appear under conflicting substitutes, breaking referential integrity. Shared token namespaces or reconciliation mechanisms ensure uniformity, allowing tokens to retain meaning across microservices, databases, and analytic tools. This challenge grows in distributed architectures, where services must coordinate without centralization becoming a bottleneck. Cross-system consistency is like maintaining a common language across international teams. Without it, misunderstandings arise and collaboration falters. By harmonizing token strategies, organizations sustain both functionality and security across their digital landscape. Regulatory frameworks such as the GDPR and CCPA explicitly recognize pseudonymization and tokenization as valid measures to reduce privacy risks. Mapping these techniques to legal obligations is not optional but essential. Regulators care not only that data is protected, but that the chosen methods align with principles like data minimization and accountability. For example, pseudonymization may lower breach notification requirements if re-identification risks are acceptably managed. Anonymization, when effective, may remove data from the scope of regulation altogether. Aligning field-level protection with compliance ensures organizations reap both legal and security benefits. It demonstrates to regulators, partners, and customers that protections are deliberate, proportionate, and trustworthy. Monitoring is the operational backbone of tokenization systems. Services must be continuously observed for availability, latency, and error rates, as well as for unauthorized or anomalous mapping lookups. Without monitoring, a failing tokenization service may silently disrupt workflows. Or worse, attackers may probe for weaknesses unnoticed. Dashboards, alerts, and automated responses ensure resilience and vigilance. Effective monitoring transforms tokenization from a static control into a living service, one that not only protects data but proves its reliability in real time. Much like a security guard patrolling a facility, monitoring ensures the protective measures remain active, responsive, and unbroken under both routine and duress. Incident response plans for tokenization systems must anticipate unique scenarios. If cryptographic keys are compromised, rapid rotation is essential. If tokens themselves are exposed, re-tokenization strategies may be required to preserve security while minimizing business disruption. Plans must address token revocation, mapping recovery, and communication with regulators and stakeholders. Without preparation, organizations may struggle to respond effectively to vault breaches or algorithmic weaknesses. Incident response is the insurance policy of tokenization, rarely invoked but invaluable when disaster strikes. A well-practiced plan ensures that even in crisis, sensitive data remains shielded by disciplined, predefined procedures rather than ad hoc reactions. Anti-patterns in tokenization and masking serve as cautionary tales. Homegrown ciphers developed without expert scrutiny often harbor fatal flaws. Ad hoc masking rules that lack policy oversight may leak sensitive patterns. Storing tokens and plaintext side by side in the same field nullifies protection entirely, offering attackers an easy key. These practices persist because they appear simple or convenient, but they betray the very purpose of protection. Organizations must resist the temptation of shortcuts and adhere to vetted, standardized methods. Anti-patterns remind us that security is not just about doing something. It is about doing the right thing correctly, consistently, and with accountability. For exam preparation, learners must be able to select the appropriate field-level protection for a given scenario. If analytics require joins while still protecting identifiers, deterministic encryption or tokenization may be the right choice. If privacy must be maximized with no chance of recovery, anonymization or redaction may be necessary. If systems must preserve format constraints, format-preserving encryption fits the need. The Security Plus exam emphasizes not only knowing the definitions of these techniques but understanding their trade-offs in risk, compliance, and business utility. This context-driven knowledge equips learners to recommend protections that satisfy multiple objectives simultaneously. Tokenization, masking, pseudonymization, and format-preserving encryption together form a toolkit for fine-grained data protection that does not paralyze business processes. When applied with thoughtful policy, strong key management, rigorous access controls, and consistent monitoring, these methods transform sensitive fields into manageable, secure assets. They allow organizations to process payments, analyze data, and share insights without exposing customers to unnecessary risk. The conclusion is clear. Disciplined field-level protection is not an obstacle to business. It is an enabler. By safeguarding what matters most while preserving necessary function, organizations can uphold both trust and performance in a data-driven world. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.